Good afternoon, friends.
Good afternoon.
Hi, I'm Laura, the Director of Education and Training and one of the masterminds behind today's really special two-act event. I cannot tell you how excited I am to have friends and Shakespearean colleagues here to share their stories. This is a lot like a regular show. The first act is about 60-65 minutes. We have a regular intermission, food back there, bar open, and then the second act, at least 45 minutes, if not a little bit more. It depends. It's a hybrid of performance and information and conversation. A couple of things, if you have your cell phone out or anything that beeps, electronic, if you could put it to silent or even turn it off and give yourself a vacation for a little while. If you do need to leave the room, because we do sell drinks, if you would not walk like in front of this, but then instead just rise from your seat and go to the back and then just walk right down this aisle right here to go out to the lobby, and then the restrooms are just past the laundry bar and to the right. During intermission, if you need to go outside, take a smoke break, do something like that, please go out through this exit to the kitchen and then through the next door. If you go out onto Peachtree Street, those doors will lock behind you and you will not see the second act, and that will be very sad because it's going to be as fabulous as the first act. What else? No videotaping, no pictures, nothing like that. We do actually have a videographer working, so it will be completely not an issue for y'all, but no photos during the show. The flash is disturbing to actors up on stage. And I think that's all I have to say. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Jeff Watkins, the artistic director, myself, Laura Cole, the director of education and training, the cast, our friends here today, the entire organization, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the first act, starring Sammy, Byron, and Othello's Tribunal.
Who am I? What do I love? How will I live my life knowing that I would die? What is my gift to humanity? I received my gift of freedom from the penitentiary on August 1st, 2014, after serving 31 consecutive years. But just because I was granted parole, it did not mean that I was corrected or healed. I still had a lot of work to do on myself. Even today, I consider myself to be a work in progress. As Hamlet says, to be or not to be, that is the question. Like Hamlet, I've chosen to live in life's questions. Prior to prison, I chose to live in my narrow answers. In my past, a typical day with Sammy's old way of thinking would begin with, I got to get up and go to work. I got to fight through traffic to get to work. And when I get to work, I got to listen to employees moaning and groaning about how that's not my job. In order to remake Sammy, I had to develop a more positive outlook. I needed a major attitude of gratitude adjustment. So instead of focusing on what I got to do and what I have to do, I chose to focus on the gratitude of what I get to do. I get to go to work each day to earn a paycheck, to support my family. I get to listen to music when I'm stuck in traffic. I get to talk with work employees about why they hate their job. But most importantly, I get to listen to and comfort a friend who may be grieving a deep loss. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to my early beginnings. I grew up in Western Kentucky in a very dysfunctional household where both my parents were alcoholics, both physically and verbally abusive. My dad, whom I idolized, was Mexican, and my mom, the best cook. You're the best cook now, baby. You're the best cook. Back in those days. My mom was the best cook in the world. Outside my violent household, I faced systemic racism every day. I was constantly bullied, beat up, belittled, and berated for being biracial. As a mixed-race child, I seemed to always be on the outside looking in. I grew up, again, in Western Kentucky, and at the age of 6, I attended an all-black elementary school. We shared the same schoolyard as the all-black middle and high school students. Since my eyes and skin color were different, I faced racism every day. At school, I was singled out and bullied by the older boys. Then, during one recess break, while I was attempting to remain safe by hiding in the classroom, I was approached by a high school boy who beat me up and forced me to perform oral sex on him. It's a memory. 59 years later, it's just as vivid as if it happened yesterday. That afternoon, when I got home from school, I ran to my dad to tell him what had happened to me. But before I could get the words out, he saw my torn shirt and he accused me of being a punk for not fighting back hard enough and allowing it to happen. From that time forth, my childhood was shattered. I realized that at 6 years old, there would be no safety or protection for me or comfort from my parents. I entered a world of secreted shame. It was fortunate that my dad lost his job. We moved. I changed schools. How I coped with that type of trauma was to just push it aside and then just run away. Of course, that way of living didn't really work out well for me, and my problems returned over and over again. At the age of 10, I was raped by an older neighborhood boy who had befriended my dad. My dad really liked him. And I had to listen to my dad talking about, why can't you be more like Paul? Again, my dad moved. He lost his job. In the life of me as a youth would begin with coming home from school every day, and I'd go to work in the fields, usually to after midnight, and I also worked the weekends. Because of my family's financial struggles, I was forced to quit school at 16 to go to work in the fields full time. Being in the fields became my sanctuary. I felt safe there. Nobody could get at me. And all this shame and trauma that was buried inside of me was just bubbling up. At the age of 1976, I shot a man 3 times. Wally, my victim, he was a bully who had threatened to beat me up the next time that he saw me. My solution was to purchase an illegal handgun, and 3 days later, when he confronted me, I shot and wounded him. I was tried and convicted and served my first year in prison. After my release from prison, the bullies left me alone. I now had a violent street reputation that if you threatened me, I would shoot you. And I might just shoot you because I didn't like you. In a twist of fate, the bullied had become the bully. In 1979, 3 men, along with me, robbed a man named Pierce in his home. In full bully mode, I chose Pierce as my victim because I used to work for him and he had been verbally abusive to me. He also was an alcoholic like my dad. He reminded me of my dad. Although I couldn't confront my dad, I could confront anyone I didn't like with all the violent rage that bubbled up inside me. This time, I blamed my troubles on hanging out with the wrong crowd. The first time, I blamed it on the gun. I decided not to use a gun again, and I decided not to allow people to be around bad people. This time while I was in prison, I took up weightlifting and became a champion powerlifter. I was so good, in fact, that I held the American record for the deadlift. I weighed 181 pounds, and my record lift was 675. Yeah, it surprised me. I didn't know how I could do stuff like that. So, after my release from prison, I vowed never to By the way, we were all tried and convicted, and all three of my accomplices turned state's evidence against me by swearing that I was their leader and that it was my plan that led them to commit the crime. You know. While I was in prison working my body, I also realized that I need to train my mind. I'd always been told that I was stupid, that I would never amount to anything. Bodybuilding gave me the courage that I needed to attain my GED in a short 3 months. I also attended vocational training to become an electrician. I also realized that working on the farm was too hard on my body, so I needed to develop my mind. In 1978, I met Carol, my first serious girlfriend. I never had a serious girlfriend before because I lacked the confidence to approach women. But because now my street cred, I gained the confidence I needed to be a ladies' man. And after all, back then, I was a handsome young man with hair. And a six-pack stomach back then, you know. Carol and I began a relationship that quickly turned volatile. She was a strong-willed woman who knew what she wanted. She started to belittle and berate me, which made me think about what it was like being at home, not having that kind of support. So I knew that I needed to get away from her, and so I returned back to my old way of doing things. I'd run away. I told her that I needed to work more and that I didn't have more time to be with her, but rather less. So I retreated back into the world where I was comfortable with, you know. So from 1978 to 1980, I never had another serious girlfriend. Then in 1981, I met Barbara. We were working at a hospital. I was a nurse's aide, and Barbara was a counselor. She had a degree from Austin Peay State University. And so at the time, to shield myself from relationships and women, I was wearing a ring on my little finger, pretending to be a wedding band, and Barbara noticed that. I was also ignorant to the fact which finger the ring was supposed to be on, you know. And so she just came right out and asked me, "Are you married?" First thing out of my mouth was, "Yes, I'm married." Then I ran to the security of the men's room. So I'm standing there, looking at myself, thinking about this beautiful woman who I just lied to, and I could just picture her beautiful brown eyes, how innocent they looked. So for some reason, I was able to make my way back out to where Barbara was, and I said, "Hey, I'm sorry I lied to you." I'm thinking, that's it. She's gone now. Then I don't have to worry about her. But she said, "You need to come by my apartment and explain to me why you lied to me." I was not expecting that. So I'm thinking, okay, what can I say? I was thinking everything except telling the truth. But anyway, I get to her apartment, and she's not home. I'm like, yes, I can leave. So as I was about to leave, I saw this 4'9" gorgeous woman coming up to me. She had on a yellow halter-top, midriff exposed, a pair of blue shorts trimmed in white, beautiful legs. So as she's getting closer to me, I quit focusing on that, and all I could see was those beautiful brown eyes. We spent the night together. Sleeping in the same bed. But no sex. I was in love. I was in love. Excuse me just a second. I needed this. Okay, so the no sex was the thing because that just creates a lot more other things that I wasn't ready for. And so Barbara and I began a relationship. A few days later, we moved in together. I discovered that she had a 4-year-old son who was living in Tennessee being cared for by some college friends of hers. So she asked me to take her down to meet Marlo. So I go down to meet Marlo, fell instantly in love with this little 4-year-old kid. About a week later, I asked Barbara to, hey, let's bring Marlo up here with us, and I'll take care of both of you. Yes, so now Marlo's with us. We're having a good time. And also, because of my weight training, I was working out a gym. It was Mike's Olympic gym. And he noticed my name up on a poster as a list of record holders. So he asked me, hey, would you like to open up a gym with me? I said, I don't know where the truth came out of me back then, but I said, I don't have any money. He said, that's okay, you can be my sweat equity owner. Okay, I wasn't quite sure what that was, but okay, I will work for you, and then we split the profits. So now, Barbara and I got married about 6 months later. 6 months after that, we were buying our first house. Now I'm a gym owner. Life was the best it ever could be for me. Then in 1983, Carol reappeared in my life. She began working at the same hospital where Barbara and I had worked. Barbara was also working a second job for Pizza Hut, and the strain of that was very difficult for her. So I asked her, why don't you become a stay-at-home mom, and I'll take care of both of you. With Barbara out of the picture, Carol started to approach me to start a relationship again. But I got lucky, and I was promoted and transferred to another hospital. I was so happy that I didn't have to listen to insults and everything again. Unfortunately for me, Carol was also moved to the same hospital. We were working together, and so I'm having to listen to all this crap all day long. And although as accomplished as I was physically, emotionally, I was weak. I gave in. I started an affair with her. It began eating at me of deceiving Barbara. And then when I finally found the strength to break it off, she threatened to tell Barbara. So I'm looking at everything that I'm losing, my wife, my son, my house, my gym, everything. And so in one fit of rage, I took Carol's life. I'm responsible for that. I was convicted, went to prison, and I never wanted to imprison Barbara with me, so I let her go. I gave her everything that we had acquired, and I thought that was the end of it. I did not know whether or not I was ever getting out of prison, but I wanted to understand why I have behaved the way that I did. So it all began with education. I went to college, got a college degree. I was running a data entry unit in there. I took individual counseling, a host of, I can't remember how many vocational trades I have accomplished or have achieved, and just doing a host of things. And then I started really reaching out for volunteer programs. One of them was Books Behind Bars. And so in that vein of Books Behind Bars, there was a part in there where they did a Shakespeare theme. And that's where my founder and mentor came in, Kurt Tofflin. And so we began this program in 1995. And so moving forward, in 1999, I had the privilege to play the title character, Othello. And in doing that, in playing Othello, I began to see, the death scene in Othello was similar to the crime that I committed. Through playing Othello and seeing the look of terror on Desdemona's face, I came to see my own victim as a human being. to see the fear, the disbelief, the betrayal in Desdemona's eyes, it changed me. I began to focus less on me and more on others. I began to separate my thinking from I had no choice to I always have a choice. Shakespeare behind bars gave me this gift, the transformative power of art, to see my actions and how my choices affect others. I now strive to be more than the sum of my crime. And if I can use the abundant mistakes I made to help others, then my life is abundantly filled with purpose. Kurt Tofflin, my mentor, said, "Hurt people will hurt people." Therefore, to remove the hurt, I had to seek to discover the source of the hurt. To discover the source, I had to seek to discover the why. To discover the why, I embraced the 4 questions that sit in the center of the Shakespeare behind bars circle of trust. To ask myself, who am I? What do I love? How will I live my life knowing that I will die? And what is my gift to humanity? Who am I? Since I've already accepted that the problem was me, my journey became, how can I heal my trauma and build self-esteem while in prison? In prison, the only free will we have is to act out. But if we act out, then we are punished. And punishment in itself does nothing to heal the root of the hurt. However, Shakespeare behind bars is grounded on the foundation of free will. Such was the case of Mike, who grew up privileged and white. Mike vowed, "I'll never play a woman's role, never play a woman's role." But when he heard that I would be playing Othello, he was quick to volunteer to play Desdemona. He knew the struggle I would have. And the courage that it took for him to step up, so honorable. But not only that, for Mike, it was also transformative. He got to see what it was like for his victim. I saw him grow into be a more compassionate person, to learn what empathy was truly like, you know. It's so strange when you think about it. Over 400 years, Shakespeare's mastery of the human condition is used to display issues we as humans lack the courage to address. Through his plays, I began to see the realm of possibilities as he articulated what my conscience had buried, thereby invoking epiphanies which created the opportunity for my personal growth. Through reading and performing Shakespeare, the stage provides an aesthetic arena for us to experience authentic emotions that otherwise would be dormant. Today, it is my profound privilege to present to you Othello's Tribunal. As an unperfect actor on the stage, who with his fears put beside his part, or some fierce thing replete with too much rage, whose strength's abundance yet weakens his own heart. So I, for fear of trust, forget to say the perfect ceremony of love's rite, and in mine own love's strength seem to decay, overcharged with the burden of my own love's might. So let my looks be then the eloquence and dumb presagers to my speaking breast, who plead for love and look for recompense more than that tongue that more hath more expressed. Learn to read what silent love hath writ. To hear with eyes belongs to love's fine wit. That Cassio loves her, I do well believe it. That she loves him 'tis apt and of great credit. the more. Howbeit I endure him not as of a constant, loving, noble nature, and I dare think he'll prove to Desdemona a most dear husband. Now I do love her too, not out of absolute lust, though peradventure I stand accounted for as great a sin, but partly led to diet my revenge, for I do suspect a lusty Moor had leaped into my seat, the thought whereof like a poisonous mineral gnaws my innards, and nothing can nor shall content my soul till I'm even with him, wife for wife. Or failing so, at least I put him into a jealousy so strong that judgment cannot cure. Which thing to do? If this poor trash of Venice can stand the putting on, I'll have our Michael Cassio on a hip, abuse him to the more in the rank garbs, for I fear Cassio with my nightcap too. Make the Moor love me, thank me, and reward me for making him egregiously an ass and practicing upon his peace, even to madness. 'Tis here. Confused. Knavery's plain face is never seen until used. My noble lord, though in the trade of war I have slain men, yet I hold it very stuff over the conscience to do no contrived murder. 9 or 10 times I thought to have yerked Cassio here under the ribs. 'Tis better as it is. Nay, sir, but he prated and spoke such scurvy and provoking terms against your honor. But with the little godliness I have, I did full hard forbear him. But I pray you, sir, are you fast married? Be thou assured of this. The Magnifico Brabantio is much beloved and hath in his potential double as the Duke's. He will divorce you or put what's restraint upon you with all his power to enforce it on. The law will give him cable. Let him do his spite, Iago. My services which I've done to Signori shall tongue his complaints. 'Tis yet to know that when I know that boasting is an honor, I shall promulgate. I fetch my life and being from men of royal siege, and my demerits shall speak unbonneted to as proud of fortune as this that I have reached. For no, Iago, but I love the gentle Desdemona. I would not my unhoused free condition put into circumscription and confined for the sea's worth. But look, what light comes yon. Most potent, grave, and reverend signors, my very noble and approved good masters, that I have taken away this old man's daughter. It is most true. True, I have married her. The very head and front of my offending hath this extent, no more. Rude am I in my speech, for little blessed with the soft phrase of peace. For sith these arms of mine had 7 years' pith, till now some 9 moons wasted, they've used their dearest actions in the attended fields. And little this great world cannot speak more than pertains to feasts of broils and battles, and therefore little shall I grace my cause in speaking for myself. Yet, by your gracious patience, I will a round, unvarnished tale deliver of my whole course of love. I'll tell you what drugs, what charms, what conjuration, what mighty magic for these proceedings that I am charged with all that I won his daughter. Her father loved me, oft invited me, still questioned me the story of my life from year to year, the battles, sieges, fortunes that I have passed. I ran it through, even from my boyish days to the very moment that he bade me tell it, wherein I spake of most disastrous chances, of moving accidents by flood and field, of hairbreadth escapes in the imminent deadly breach, of being taken by the insolent foe and sold to slavery, of my redemption thence, and portents in my travels history, wherein of entrees vast, deserts, idle, rough quarries, rocks and hills whose heads touch heaven. 'Twas my hint to speak. Such was the process. And of the cannibals that each other eat, the anthropophagi and men, whose heads do grow beneath their shoulders. These things to hear would Desdemona seriously incline. But still, the house affairs would draw her thence, whichever as she could with haste dispatch she'd come again. And with a greedy ear devour up my discourse, which I observing, I took once a pliant hour, and found good means to draw from her a prayer of earnest heart, that I would all my pilgrimage dilate, where by parcels she had something heard, but not intently. Though I did consent, did often beguile her of her tears when I did speak of some distressful stroke that my youth had suffered. My story being done, she gave me for my pains a world of sighs. She swore in faith. 'Twas strange. 'Twas passing strange. 'Twas pitiful. Oh, it was wondrous pitiful. She wished she had not heard it, yet she wished that heaven had made her such a man. She thanked me and bade me that if I had a friend that loved her, I should but teach him how to tell my story, and that would woo her. Upon this hint, I spake. There's nothing more. She loved me for the dangers that I had passed. I loved her that she did pity them. This only is the witchcraft that I have used. Here comes the lady. Let her witness it. My noble father, I do perceive here a divided duty. To you I am bound for life and education. My life and education both do teach me how to respect you. You are the lord of my duty, and I am hitherto your daughter. But here's my husband, and so much duty as my mother showed you, preferring you before her father. So much I challenge that I may profess due to the more. I saw Othello's visage in his mind, and to his valiant parts did I my soul consecrate. Oh, my fair warrior! If after every tempest come such calms, may the winds blow till they have wakened death, and let the laboring bark climb hills of seas, Olympus high, and duck again as low as hails from heaven. If I were to die, 'twere now to be most happy, for I fear my soul hath her content so absolute that not another comfort known to man as this time here. Oh, my sweet, I prattle out of fashion, and I dote in mine own comforts. Come, let us to the castle. I like not that. What dost thou say, Iago? Did Michael Cassio, when you wooed my lady, know of your love? He did from first to last. Why dost thou ask? But for the satisfaction of my thoughts, no further harm. Why of thy thought, Iago? Oh, I did not think he had been acquainted with her. Oh, yes. And went between us very oft. Indeed. Indeed. Aye, indeed. Discerns thou aught, and that is he not honest? Honest, my lord. Honest, aye, honest. My lord, for aught I know. What dost thou think? Think, my lord. Think, my lord. By heaven, thou echoes me, as if there's some monster in thy thought too hideous to be shown. Thou dost mean something. I heard thee say even now, thou likest not that when Cassio left my wife. What didst not like? When I told thee he was of my counsel in my whole course of wooing, thou criest, indeed, and didst contract and purse thy brow together, as if thou hadst then shut up in thy brain some horrible conceit. If thou dost love me, show me thy thoughts. My lord, you know I love thee. I think thou dost. And for I know thou art full of love and honesty, and weighest thy words before thou givest them breath. Therefore these stops of thine affright me the most. For these things in a false, disloyal knave are tricks of custom, but to the man that's just, their close dilations working from the heart, that passion cannot rule. For Michael Cassio, I dare be sworn, I think he's an honest man. I think so too. Men should be what they seem, would they not, would they might seem none. Certain men should be what they seem. Why then I think Cassio's an honest man. Nay, yet there's more to this. I prithee, tell me as to thy thinkings as thou dost ruminate, and give thy worst of thoughts, the worst a word. Good my Lord, pardon me, though I am bound to every act of duty, I am not bound to that all slaves are free to utter my thoughts. Why say they are vowed and false? Thou dost conspire against thy friend, Iago, if thou but thinkst him wronged, and makest thine ear a stranger to thy thoughts. I do beseech you, for though perchance I am vicious in my guess, as it is my nature's plague to spy into abuses, all for my jealousy shapes faults there are not. What dost thou mean? Good name in man and woman, good my Lord, is the immediate jewel of their souls. Who steals my purse, steals trash, was nothing, something, 'tis mine, 'twas his, and hath been slave to thousands. But he that filches from me my good name robs me of that which not enriches him, but makes him poor indeed. By heaven, I know thy thoughts. Oh, beware, my Lord, of jealousy. It is the green-eyed monster which doth mock the meat it feeds on. That cuckold lives in bliss, who, certain of his face, loves not the wronger. But oh, what damned men's tales he o'er, who dotes yet doubts, suspects, but soundly loves. Why is this? Why is this? Thinkest thou I'd make my life of jealousy? To fall still the changes of the moon with fresh suspicion? No, to be once in doubt is once to be resolved. Exchange me for a goat when I shall turn the business of my soul to such exsufflicate and blown surmises matching thy inference. 'Tis not to make me jealous to say my wife is fair, feeds well, loves company, is free of speech, sings, plays, and dances well. Where virtue is, these are more virtuous. Nor from mine own weak merits shall I draw the smallest fear or doubt of her revolt. She had eyes. She chose me. No, Iago, I'll see before I doubt. When I doubt, prove, and on the proof there's no more of this. Away at once with love or jealousy. For now I have reason to show the love I bear thee with franker spirit, as I am bound receive it from me. I speak not yet of proof. Look to your wife. Were your eyes thus, nor jealous nor secure, I would not have your free and noble nature out of self-bounty be abused. I know our country's disposition well. In Venice, they do let the gods see the pranks they dare not show their husband. Does thou say so? She did deceive her father loving you, and when she seemed to shake and fear you, she loved him more. And so she did. Well, go to then. She that's so young could give out such a seeming to seal her father's eyes up close as oak. He thought it was witchcraft. But I am too much to blame for too much loving you. I see this has a little dash of spirit, not to jot. Leave me, I'll go. If more thou dost perceive, let me know more. This honest creature doubtless knows more, much more than he unfolds. Why did I marry? I do not but think Desdemona's honest. If I do prove her haggard, though that her jests were my dear heartstrings, I'd whistle her off and let her down the wind to pray at fortune. Happily, for I am black and have not those soft parts of conversation that chamberers have, or for I'm declining to the vale of years. Yet that's not much. She's gone. I am abused, and my relief must be to loathe her. Oh, curse of marriage that we can call these delicate creatures ours and not their appetites. I had rather be a toad and live upon the vapors of a dungeon than to keep a corner in the thing I love for others' use. Yet 'tis the plague of great ones. Prerogative are they less than the base. 'Tis destiny unashunnable like death. Even now this forked plague is fated to us when we do quicken. If testimony be false, I'll not believe it. False to me? No, my Lord. Avaunt, be gone. Thou hast set me on the rack. I swear 'tis better to be much abused than know it but a little. What sense had I of her stolen hours of lust? I saw it not, thought it not, it harmed not me. I slept the next night well, was free and merry. I found not Cassio's kisses on her lips. He that is robbed, not wanting what is stolen, let him not know it. He's not robbed at all. I had been happy if the pioneers, General Camp, all had tasted her sweet body, so I had nothing known. And now forever farewell the tranquil mind. Farewell content. Farewell the plumed troops and the big wars that make ambition virtue. Farewell. Farewell the neighing steed and the shrill trump, the spirit stirring drum, the ear-piercing fife, the royal banner in all qualities, pride, pomp, and circumstance of glorious war. And oh, you mortal engines, whose rude throats the immortal Jove dreads, clamors, counterfeit. Othello's occupation's gone. My Lord, villain, be sure thou prove my love a whore. Be sure of it. Give me the ocular proof, or by the worth of man's eternal soul. Thou hast better to have been born a dog than answer my wicked wrath. Give me a living reason she's disloyal. My noble Lord, I do not like the office, though I am pricked to it by fullest love and honesty. I will go on. Lately, I lay with Cassio and being troubled with the raging tooth, I could not sleep. There are these kinds of men so loose of soul that in their sleep will mutter their affairs. One of such kind is Cassio. In sleep I heard him say, "Sweet Desdemona, let us hide our love." And then, sir, would he wring my hand and kiss me hard as if he plucked up kisses by the very roots, and throw his leg over my shoulder and said, "Cursed fate that gave thee to the moral monstrous." Nay, but this is but a dream. But this denoted a foregone conclusion. Be wise, we see nothing done. I would tear her to pieces. Tell me but this. Have you sometimes seen a handkerchief spotted with strawberries in your wife's hand? I gave her such a one. 'Twas my first gift. I know not that, but such a handkerchief today did I see Cassio wipe his beard with that. If it be that or any that was hers, it speaks with her against the other proof. Oh, now I see it is true. Look, Iago, all my fond love thus do I blow to heaven. 'Tis gone. Arise, black vengeance from thy hallowed hell. Yield up, O love, thou crowned throne, to tyrannous hate. Swell bosom with thy fraud for 'tis of asphyx tongue. Yet be wise. Damned her, lewd minx. Come, go with me apart. I will furnish me with some swift means of death for the fair devil. Now art thou my lieutenant. How do you, Desdemona? Well, my good Lord, give me that hand. This hand is moist, my lady. Hot, hot, and moist. It is yet seen no age, no sorrow. This hand of yours requires a sequester from liberty, fasting, and prayer, much castigation, exercise devout, for here's a young sweating devil that commonly rebels. Give me thy handkerchief. That which I gave thee, that handkerchief did an Egyptian to my mother give. She told her while she kept it would make her amiable and subdue my father entirely of her love. But if she lost it, I made a gift of it. My father's eye should hold her lowly, and his spirits should hunt after new fancies. She dying gave it me and bid me, when my fate would have me wife, give it her. I did so. Make it a darling like your precious eye. To lose it or give it away were such perdition as nothing else could match. 'Tis true, there's magic in the web of it. A Sibyl that number in the world the sun to course 200 compasses. In her prophetic fury sowed the work, and it was dyed in mummy which the skillful conserved a maiden's heart. Therefore look to it well. Is it lost? Is it gone? Is it out of the way? Fetch me the handkerchief. Let me see it. Fetch me the handkerchief. The handkerchief. The handkerchief. Am I the motive of these tears? Had it pleased heaven to try me with affliction, had he rained all kinds of sores and shames upon my bare head, steeped me in poverty to the very lips, given to captivity me and my utmost hopes, I should have found some place in my heart, a drop of patience. But alas, to make me the fixed figure of the time for scorn to point his slow and moving finger at. But there where I have garnered up my heart, the fountain from which my current runs, or keep it for a cistern for foul toads to knot and gender in. Was this fair paper, this most goodly book, to write whore upon? What committed? Oh, heaven stops the nose at, and the moon winks the bawdy wind that kisses all its meat is hushed within the hollow mind of earth, and will not hear it. What committed? Impotent strumpet! Are you not a strumpet? I cry you mercy then. I took you for that cunning whore of Venice that married to Othello. Out to my sight! Oh, God. It is the cause. It is the cause, my soul. Let me not name it. It is the cause. Yet I'll not shed her blood, nor scar that whiter skin of hers in snow, and smooth as monumental alabaster. Yet she must die, else she'll betray more men. Have you prayed tonight, Desdemona? If you bethink yourself any crime unreconciled as to heaven and earth, solicit for it straight. Well, do it and be brief. I will walk by. I will not kill thy unprepared spirit. No, heaven forbid, I will not kill thy soul. Think on thy sins. I saw the handkerchief. O perjured woman, thou dost stone my heart and makes me call what I intend to do a murder, which I thought sacrifice. I saw the handkerchief. Speakest thou to him through my name? Out, strumpet! Down, strumpet! Down, strumpet! Down. Oh, ill-starred witch, pale as thy smock, and this look of thine shall hurl my soul from heaven. Fiends shall snatch at it. Iago! From this time forth, I, Iago, shall never speak a word. Soft. A word or two before you go. I have done the state some service. They know it. No more of that. I pray you in your letters when you shall these unlucky deeds relate, speak of me as I am, nothing extenuate, nor set down in malice. Then must you speak of one that loved, not wisely, but too well. A one not easily jealous, but being wrought, perplexed in the extreme. A one whose hand, like the base Indian, threw a pearl away. A one whose tears, albeit unused to the melting mood, drop tears as fast as the Arabian tears, their medicinable gum. Set you down this and say that in Aleppo once were a malignant Turk, traduced the state I took by the throat, the circumcised dog, and smote him thus. Through his play, I hope to affect the thinking behind that green-eyed monster and offer a possible solution to deal with acts of violence. Like Desdemona's handkerchief, it's always the little things that get inflated into larger pictures. For me, living into life's questions is how I come to live life's bigger picture. I can only fully understand what I'm seeing if I have all the information I need to make an informed decision. I do this by asking deeper and deeper questions. I also actively work on embracing non-judgment. There's no way for me to know what has transpired in the life of another human being or what they are going through. If I consider the bad behavior around me as their fruit, then I can acknowledge that the problem is not so much with their behavior as it is with what causes that behavior, their root. I have shared my root with you. How you judge me is up to you. I attempt to allow people to be people. If I place significant value on you, then I will make positive decisions regarding how I treat you. I don't have to agree with others' choices, but I must accept, respect, and allow them to be themselves. Through forgiveness, I can move forward because I do not live in my past, but what I do live with is grieving for the life that I'm responsible for taking. It's also my responsibility to give back. I do that by creating space to help others realize their potential. Through creating a life about giving to others, I have become a receiver. In January 2015, I reached out to Barbara. My sole intention was just to say that I'm sorry for the harm that I caused her. We reconnected. We began a new conversation. We were successful in healing that damaged relationship. On July 21st, 2016, Nashville, Tennessee, Barbara and I were remarried by my mentor, Kurt Tofflin. Boy, my cup runneth over, huh? I go to sleep every night next to a beautiful woman, and I wake up to the scent of bacon and eggs. It does not get any better than that, right? So, who am I? What do I love? How will I live my life knowing that I will die? What is my gift to humanity? I developed this play, or began, as I told you in the beginning, I am a work in progress, and I'm constantly doing things to improve the quality of it, to just go deeper and deeper. I developed this in 2011 when I did not ever think or had a dream that I would get out of prison. My sole purpose was this to be a monument to my victims, to the people I have victimized. I did not want the memories to ever lie dormant in my brain, and for my actions to repeat itself in hurting anyone ever again. Thank you for allowing me into your space.
All right. Yeah. Get comfortable. Welcome. Sammy, thank you for that wonderful presentation in the first act. Before we get into some harder questions, what was it like just performing on the Shakespeare Tavern stage?
I'm trying to think of the correct word. It was amazing. That's what it is. Simply amazing. I love the acoustics. The audience was engaged, and which allows us as performers to really just dig deeper and more. As Aaron said, if I had one, what was it said at the end? If I regret one.
Right. If one good deed in all my life I did, I do repent it from my very soul. That one.
That's it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. If I could do it 10,000 more.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
10,000 more.
Nothing grieves me heartily indeed.
Heartily indeed, but I have not done
10,000 more.
Not showing off. Great. Yes, thank you for that. I thoroughly enjoy performing on this stage as well. I know you talked a lot about the acoustics in the room.
Yes.
Beforehand, it's very good acoustics. Yes, and it's a very welcoming space, and having an audience being able to look them in the eyes, it's wonderful to connect with them as well. For those who don't know or haven't seen the documentary or anything, can you talk a little bit, Sammy, about what Shakespeare Behind Bars actually is and how you ended up getting involved with it?
Okay, yes, sure. One of my favorite subjects. We began, it was a volunteer program called Books Behind Bars, and every spring there was in lieu of Shakespeare, there was a Shakespeare theme. And so the psychologist who was working with us brought in Kurt Tofflin to coach the scene. So she paid him, I think, like $500 to come in. And then it was a group of us who volunteered to go with the students to perform a scene. And Kurt enjoyed it so much, and he wanted to come back. And she said, well, I can't afford to pay you. Kurt said, I will do it for free. So when you're offering to do things for free, then people will come in. And so we involved, those of us who were involved, I think it was about 8 of us in the very beginning, we knew nothing of Shakespeare. And then the magic that happened was, if in order to understand the scene, we started to pay attention to the language of it. Then we learned, what onomatopoeia was about. We learned about iambic pentameter. And then it was much easier to equate Shakespeare with even rap music. It's the beats. And then also the most amazing thing, so it was a history lesson in a sense that we had to dive into the language to understand every little nuance about it. And so again, higher learning. We read a piece of text, then we go research it, and so we fell in love with that. But at the same time, we decided to want to do a performance for the prison yard. And at first we were a little hesitant about that because men dressing up as women and all of that. And so at the very first show, there was some laughter, but the laughter went away. And people started to come. And first they were saying that no one would understand the language of it. But we got to give people credit. People are brilliant. People will understand. Just stay true to the language. People will get it. And then everybody wanted to come join, because prison is a very drab place, and where you're just really boxed in at all times. And performing Shakespeare for that hour or 2 hours, if you're doing Hamlet, 3 hours, you're taken away. You're taken on a journey. And what it's become for all of us, it's a life journey as we learn not only to learn about the arts, but learn more about ourselves. Harry and I were talking after my show about how it is to revisit characters, and what we do is to go deeper and deeper. And so that's what it's about. It's about not about pretending, but really about being more truthful. And that's why I chose, when I incorporated my play, is you need the backstory to come. Where did this guy come from? I'm asking myself that. Where did I come from? What has meaning to me? And this has meaning to me. I'm hooked for life.
Beautiful, thank you. And Harry, how did you end up pursuing acting as a career? How did you get your start, or how did you get your big break, as people like to talk about? And how did that tie in with you eventually doing the Titus with Julie Taymor?
Well, I'm still waiting for my big break, but maybe it'll come. We'll have that happen one day. But I became, when I was in second grade, my brother was in 8th grade, and he did a skit in a little church basement, the church basement. We had a little stage there. And he performed a thing where he was hurt. Somebody hit him in the head with a rolled up cylinder of paper, and I thought it was a real stick. And so I was so convinced that this was true. And when he told me he was just acting, I thought to myself, I can do that. I can do that.
I could do that.
Yeah, and so just like in, what's that movie, the movie, Chorus Line, that song. But and so I was hooked then, and I remember just thinking that through certain rituals, I grew up as a Catholic boy, and we had very many sacred feast days and so forth. We'd have to do performances, and I frequently, when the other kids would forget their lines, I knew it. It was almost like I could see the words in my head. And so if there was a moment that would go by and I knew somebody dropped a line, I would be able to, I just had that ability, the kind of memorization kind of gift, as it were. I can sort of see things. And so anyway, it's not so much that that got me into acting. I didn't think I was going to be an actor until I left the seminary. I was studying to be a priest, and I intended to do it, but I started getting cast in shows professionally, and so it kind of found me. Insofar as Julie Taymor, I had just moved I was teaching school in Chicago, public school, and I owned a little bodega. And a girl that I went to college with, Laura Cole, my friend and I were in school with, Emily Gerson, Sains now, called me up and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm teaching school. I own a grocery store." And she said, "Well, stop doing that. Come to New York. I'm an agent now, and I'll represent you." Yeah.
Is that easy?
Yeah, it sort of was. But you know, I mean, so I moved to New York, and one of the first things I did is I met Jeffrey Horowitz from Theater for a New Audience, a good friend, and he had me come in. I did some Henry V stuff. They were auditioning for it. I didn't get that. Mark Rylance got it because he'd work with the director or whatever. That jerk. Yeah, that jerk. But he remembered me, and he wanted me to meet with Julie offline because they were doing Titus, which I wasn't terribly familiar with. But we sat down and had tea, and she had offered the role to a couple of other actors who felt that the play was racist and this kind of thing. The part was, at least, and that mystified me. I thought it was perhaps one of the most eloquent Black Pride roles that I had ever read, and so I was delighted to do it. And a couple of years later, we did the movie. Yeah, I had to audition for that movie.
It's an interesting topic you bring up, race as it relates to Shakespeare. And then you talking about it being a very prideful or Black prideful role. For all intents and purposes, Aaron is a supervillain.
Right.
Right. And Othello, he gets taken advantage of a lot by a white character, Iago. How do you, and this is a question for both of you, how do you all see race in Shakespeare, and how do you find a way for yourself to bring yourself to the text and not basically hate what you're doing or feel that you're being judged because of your skin color?
Just referring to the text is so much like I think it was in Two Gentlemen of Verona, when one of the characters says black is beautiful, you know, and then in Aaron when he talks about the stork can lave his legs in
hourly in the flood
flood and still come out black. But it's through the language and the experience that allows, you know, just having that conversation, having that investigation, and see where we fit in. You know, that's what I think more than anything. It's just to start a conversation and to realize that, Harry, like you were talking about, when you talk about Titus Andronicus, just, you know, Aaron is the supervillain. But at the same time, if you really listen to what he's talking about in his monologues, then it's very, very powerful. It's very empowering to be black. Again, Othello was taking advantage of, but Aaron took it upon himself. But I really love that children brings everyone together. Aaron was heartless until it came to what? His babe. When it came about passing something on, he wanted to be sure that his seed continued on, and that was important and stuff, because then he became somebody that I could admire. I couldn't admire his acts that he did, but the admiration for wanting to protect your own. So that's why I was at on that.
I have always felt, you know, that and this is something that a friend of mine said in a letter to a director who had said Shakespeare didn't intend for you to play the part like you're playing. And he said, and my friend said, listen, we could get back, we could go in on that, but I think Shakespeare's intentions are up for debate.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's very true. I think that these people, many who have troubles with some of the roles, and I understand it's Shylock and so forth, but I believe that it really is a matter of interpretation, and that I don't, for example, think that Aaron does anything wrong in Titus. He's brought in chains to a country where he is an enemy combatant, basically, treated terribly, and he exacts a revenge. What the hell is he supposed to do? What would we have him do? And in any other thing, that would be an act of heroism. And so, I'm not so sure that I think that Othello is, such a great victim. He has a lacking in his own self-esteem and so forth. Yeah. I think that is perhaps manipulated, but he's not compelled to kill his wife or anything. So I think that, really depending on how one approaches it, throughout time, throughout generations, throughout centuries and all of that, that you can look at it as a cause for taking offense or being somewhat, suspicious about these intentions of Shakespeare, but he doesn't judge his characters. He gives them all a dose of humanity that they can hinge upon, and you can make it anything you want.
Yes.
I mean, what does to be or not to be mean? What does, else she'll betray more men? That could mean many things. She'll betray men who are Moors, or she can betray more people who are, male. So, who the hell has the final say? Shakespeare isn't here to tell us what he intended. And even if he were, it really isn't up to him anymore. You know what I mean? So there you are.
Yes.
I mean, there's just a little addendum to this. I had the great honor of working with August Wilson. In fact, directly in the room. In fact, I have some reason not sort of brag, but he wrote the last leading character in his last play for me to play.
You can't brag about that.
Yeah, I am bragging about it. And it was very difficult, perhaps the most difficult role in his entire canon to play. But he saw something in some work that we had done before. But in that work we had done before, we argued tremendous. I didn't like him in the rehearsal room. I didn't want him in there because it's not his place to be there, telling actors what to do with his damned words, which were beautiful, of course. But that said, now it's ours. When you give the actor, the director, and all that stuff, the work, it's ours to do with what we want. And that's the tradition. I think that's the right way to do it. You have to it's just no less so than, say, with the Bible, where two people can look at a scripture and derive entirely different things from it.
Yeah. So. Same way with our laws.
That's right. That's right.
Being interpreted
that's right.
in ways all the time. It's just the written word is there, and it's up to people to determine how they want to go about understanding it.
C'est ça.
True. So piggybacking off that, so there are very few characters who are specifically written as characters of color. How do you see yourself within, or both of you, how do you all see yourself in Shakespeare's canon outside of those few characters? And what does it take as a society, as a community that celebrates his works, to tear down the preconceived notions of what these characters should be or how they should look, so that our stages reflect more and more of what our communities look like?
I think the characters are really, I look at it like, should be without color. It should be within the content of what the message that they are portraying. And what art is are you telling the truth? That's the main thing I focus on, is the character telling the truth. It doesn't matter what race or nationality or what the background come from. What we should be investigating is, tell us more about that character. What can I learn more about that character? And that will translate into the performance. And through the performance, and when you have more people of color on stage and more people of color viewing it, that will create more space for everyone. Because, you have to overcome those fears. You think, okay, I can't play this role because I'm a black person, or a white person shouldn't be playing this role. It goes both ways. So it's a matter of interpretation. It's about acceptance of the art and being able to go outside the box and give the very best person the best opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with a great deal of what Sammy said. I think that, like you, I think that we can remove, depending on the production, the approach that the mise en scène, the director, everybody, the lighting designer, the set designer, where we're setting it, contextualizing it. Once we've done that and we know what the rules of this production is, of this particular play, as long as those rules are consistent within that production, then I think that we don't really have to regard it. That is to say, pay much attention to the role of race, as it were. People have flipped Othello's race and made, that kind of thing. And I think as long as you know the rules and that those are clear, then it's okay. And I take permission from Shakespeare's very words in Julius Caesar, where he says, "How many ages hence shall this our lofty scene be acted o'er in states unborn, in accents yet unknown?" And I think that's true. That's permission. That he's like, please take it for the rest of the time and do what you will with it. Yeah. We cannot imagine what the permutations of these great truths are throughout time.
Exactly. Lovely. Let's say, hypothetically, if there were any young, relatively handsome actors in the room, and they wanted to, I don't know, maybe try to be in a movie with you or something. How would you recommend they go about that?
Yeah, well, I would say this is the very interesting question.
Yeah, it's hypothetical.
O'Neill. Until you identified me, I thought you were talking about me, a young, relatively handsome.
Jump on while you can.
No, it's a question that we get a lot, but this is something. If you can bring O'Neill, and I would say this to anybody in the room, but if you can bring assets to production, money, producers, material, all of these things, and I think that there's nothing wrong with actors buying their way or figuring out a way to be of some benefit to getting the thing produced. I'm working with a young actor now in New York. He's about 23 years old. He asked me this when he was 18, and he went out and got a script commissioned, got it written. I helped him with paying for that. The story he came up with, and so he put that into motion. But I would say, even if it's something that's already going to be in production that you become aware of, you know me, so you can just call. Is there anything in there for me? We do this all the time, and if there is something, or if you can bring, or if there's something specifically for you, or something that could be created that you could be in, then and you can bring assets to make that come to pass, then we could do that.
Great. Y'all heard that?
Right on, very cool. Very cool. You guys should all get together, get a script, and let's see if we can't get it done. I ask the same questions all the time.
Great. Sammy, I really want to thank you for your piece, because actually, and those, I work here obviously, and many people who I work with don't know this about me. I've never really talked about it. I have 3 brothers, eldest of which has been dealing with some legal trouble because of an act of violence that he committed. And he served some time in prison, and he actually is currently out, basically kind of on a technicality in his trial, and they're looking to try to retry him and to incarcerate him again. And he's trying to fight that currently. And a question that I have for you is, do you think, especially in the African American community, do you think that there is more violence in our community? And also, what is something that you would like everyone in this room to take away as far as people who are incarcerated? Something you would want them to know that they probably aren't aware of or have a misconception of?
I would start by saying one of my favorite sayings, and in my house I have it printed up on the wall, is "To thine own self be true." You know, and I say that in a sense when you are going through the justice system, it looks different. If it's just reality, it looks different if you're black or if you have money. If you don't have any of those resources, it's going to be a tough road for you to hoe. And in respect to your relative, sometimes you know what you've done. If you are guilty, take responsibility for what it is that you're doing, and then the rest is just triage. You know, just because you can, if you're released on a technicality, it doesn't mean that you're not guilty. But I'm not trying to pass judgment or anything like that. But yet, I hate to say "but" because the wife's way everything else. Yet at the same time, if you can gift them with resources, and number one, if what I want from anyone who has committed an offense is the same thing that I gave to myself, and that is to understand why they behaved in the way that they did. That's why in my piece, I did my whole backstory to show where all this erupted at. Yesterday at when Harry and the doctor, you all were speaking up there, and we're talking about Will Smith, and my wife and I were talking about it last night and this morning. In fact, there's something else going on with Will Smith. You know, it's easy to have a strong foundation, but we need to get our heads together and on the same pace, in the same, headed in the same direction. And for the young youth dealing with the justice system, it's like I say, it looks different from us, but at the same time, the laws are what the laws are. We cannot take that part away, and so we have to equip, especially our black youth and community, just how to interact with the law, with law enforcement. We have to equip them with that. But it all begins with one thing: telling the truth. To thine own self be true.
Thank you. Harry, would you care to share with us any difficulties that you have faced in your career navigating through film and television of being a person of color that you feel other actors of a different skin tone did not face, same as you?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, one that is been asked of me, and I have thought about it through the years, and maybe my answer would have been different a while ago, but I think now I would have to know what it would be like to be white. I only have ever been, or somebody, or Asian, or any other thing than what I am, but I've only ever had this experience of it. And so I think acting and trying to gain a kind of purchase, navigate, as you say, a career is difficult for anyone, whatever level of notoriety or notability or success, or what people like to think of as that. But I don't know. I think my sole thing has never been thinking about it, but where I saw a problem, then I thought that I could solve that problem. And so if nobody was hiring me, I made my own productions. I went out and got the money, or went out and worked the other jobs that I had to do in order to make them, found people of like mind to do it. But you know, and I take great inspiration from the fact that in the teeth of much difficulty and across a broad range of disciplines, black people have accomplished amazing things. And I think that seeing this kind of focus on victimization of black people, particularly in this diversity, equity, and inclusion age where everybody's woke and so forth, and everybody's talking about speaking on my behalf and wanting me to go to acting training things or sensitivity training. I don't need it. Just don't get in my way, and I'll do it myself. And so that's really been my method. I think it's a Chicago kind of mentality that I have. But I looked at the churches that spring up because somebody believes and won't quit. But I think that applies to everybody. So I don't know. I'm not a victim. I'm a grown man. I can do it if anybody else can do it, and so I can't speak to that so well, I guess.
Thank you. What are your favorite roles in Shakespeare? Both of you.
Oh, wow.
That we've played or that we want to play?
In general, like if you have a bucket list role, or a role that you've played, or just a character that you, every time you come across them, it's like, hey, that's it.
I would love to be Kent to his Lear, or him to be Lear to my Kent.
That would be awesome.
That'd be really cool. We could have a lot of fun.
In case there's anybody in the room that is in charge of programming here, over the next, next couple of years. Can you say that louder?
There's so many magnificent. I think, I want to hear Sammy's thing, but I want really to do Lear. That's my next big thing.
Lear is awesome. Harry and I were talking, and we have played a lot of the same roles. And I always am usually stumped when somebody asks me that, because I cannot figure it out, because I'm about investing in anything that I do, whether it's a supporting role or whatever, or a lead role. I remember wanting to play Hamlet so bad, but someone else wanted to play it who needed it more. So it was just important for me to step aside and be supportive of that person. And I was just like you, I learned every line of Hamlet, and anytime that person didn't show up for practice, I was on it. I was on it. But the role I have not found a role where I could not learn something else about myself. And that is what inspires me, whether it's big or small.
Yeah. Across Shakespeare, I would say my favorite thing was, doing Aaron. I loved playing Brutus and Julius Caesar. Would love to have been able to play Antony. That's my favorite of Shakespeare's plays. I don't think it's his best play, but I think it's my favorite, certainly the most accessible. My favorite role that I have ever played in my life has been Jay Gatsby. We did a production of The Great Gatsby in 1990, and that was just pure joy to be able to do that.
Okay. Again, because I'm really, really adamant about getting you here to perform. In case these people that I speak of are in the room that are in charge of programming here, and say we wanted to do Lear with you or something, I don't know, would you be willing to grace us with a speech now as sort of maybe an audition?
I don't know anything from Lear.
It doesn't have to be from Lear.
Blow wind and crack your cheeks.
We take all kinds of Shakespeare.
Okay, great. Yes, all right, here's something. Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this sun of York. In all the clouds that lowered upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean buried, now are our brows bound with victorious wreaths, our bruised arms hung up for monuments, our stern alarms changed to merry meetings, our dreadful marches to delightful measures. And now, instead of mounting barbed steeds to fright the souls of fearful adversaries, he capers nimbly in a lady's chamber to the lascivious pleasing of a lute. But I, that was not shaped for sportive tricks, nor made to court an amorous looking glass, I, that am rudely stamped, cheated of feature by dissembling nature, curtailed of this fair proportion, crude, unfinished, sent before my time into this breathing world scarce half made up, and that so lamely and unfashionable the dogs bark at me as I halt by them. I have no delight to pass away the time except to spy my shadow in the sun and descant on my own deformities. And therefore, since I cannot prove a lover to entertain these fair, well-spoken days, I am determined to prove a villain and hate the idle pleasure of these days. I don't know if that was right. I inverted some of that.
You guys got your money's worth. Cool. I got a few questions to kind of round us out. What do you both think is the biggest misconception in Shakespeare? And piggybacking off that, you think, what do you think is the biggest reason why there aren't more people of color willing to do Shakespeare or pursue it?
I think it's fear. It's fear of the language, because of they don't see it as poetry, they just see it as something they just do not understand. But once they begin to understand it, then the fear is removed. Then it becomes an investigative process. Because then, it's like, okay, you must be a nerd to study Shakespeare. And then when they see that, hey, I grew up thinking, everyone's telling me that you're stupid, that you're dumb. And then once I embrace Shakespeare, I'm like, man, this is really easy. And I have to go to school to learn more about this, right? And then not only that, I want people to understand it in the same way, in the same context that I do. So, and it was about, one of my fears of performing in prison was that the other inmates would not understand it. And Kurt was quite adamant about, no, we're not going to change the language for the people. The people will understand. The people will understand if we do the investigation that we need to be truthful to that character, then you will be understood. And so I equate that to life in general. I want to, if me and Harry are, we are having a dispute, you and I are having a dispute about something, it doesn't mean, it's kind of like looking with just one eye, right? You don't see the whole picture, but if you take the hand away, you see the whole picture. And so I need to take most of the time when people are arguing, they do not take the time, they're sitting there thinking about what their response is going to be, instead of listening to that other person. If you take the time to listen to that person, then you understand that you have a lot more in common than you think. And that's what brings people together. That's what Shakespeare does in a sense. There's that fear from the very beginning, but once you get into it, the language is so beautiful. You want to share this with someone. Hey, come look at me, read this with me. Help me understand this. We had a guy, his name was Red, he's in the Shakespeare documentary, and for years, I did not know he was dyslexic, right? He could not read, yet he performed. And he used to trick me every day until I learned this, right? He would have me recite his line, and he was so brilliant at remembering it. He would remember the whole thing. He would never miss a beat, but he could not read or write. And because he did not know anything about being dyslexic, right? But it's all about that opportunity. So that inspired him to go to school, to figure out what his problem was. They just used to push him aside and said, you're just dumb, you're just nothing, we'll just pass you on through. But now, he has an education now, because he learned what it is. All because of what? Shakespeare.
That's beautifully stated, and I couldn't agree more. And I guess the only thing I might add is from a performative standpoint, I think that the biggest misconception about Shakespeare is that British people do it better than Americans.
Perfect. I do have a question that I forgot that I wanted to ask. For either of you, what is in performing or even on set, or what is the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened? This is a question for the actors in the room, truly.
Laughter. When the laughter bug hits you, it is absolutely over.
It's true.
There's no saving it, right? We were at a performance, and this guy, his name was Ronald Kuiper, and his costume, something fell down. It was around his mouth. It's supposed to have been on his head. Somebody started laughing. People, Kurt Toffler, our director, I'm looking back for him for support. He's doubled over in laughter. I'm like, there's not going to be any help here, you know. You cannot save it, you know. So just enjoy the laughter, pick it up. It's kind of like when I knocked my water over there. So what? So what? Cannot save that one.
Yeah, I guess the most embarrassing thing that happened to me, pretty minor, but you know, I'm fairly forgetful. As much as I can remember lines, I can't remember life things like left from right or so. You know, I forget. So I came out on stage on Broadway. Dwight Andrews, my dear friend, would know the play, but it was during Radio Golf, and it was, you know, on Broadway, and so and all this, and I didn't zip up my zipper. And so it was the first act, first scene, and I walked out on stage, and I saw some ladies in the front row. They were looking at me. And so I sort of stole a look. I was like, oh, jeez. So I turned around like this, and that's about it in terms of, but you know, but many. It's like, they got a great show that night, by the way. No, but actually, there's one more. There's one more where I was deeply chagrined, and this is the best one, I think. I did a play by Athol Fugard called Statements After an Arrest Under the Immorality Act. It's a one-act play. It's two actors, black guy, white woman. They're having an illicit affair during, you know, apartheid, and it's nude for the first half of that act. And so my mother was in a tiny little theater. My mother was in the front row, and my sister. And I know I told them. I said, listen, I'm going to be, you know, get ready for it, you know. But I would be there, you know. It shouldn't have been any great surprise to my mother to see me naked, but there it was. And so I came out and I said, the lights come up, and I could just sense it. I could see it from the, you know, from the periphery. My mother and my sister did like. And they stayed like that for the whole rest of the. I was like, oh man, that was the worst. That happens.
Lovely. So I have a final set of questions, and Sammy, I'm going to start with you. Who are you?
I'm a work in progress. That's who I am. I'm constantly working on myself. To be a better person. You know what it says? To be or not to be, that is the question. So I choose to live in life's questions. When I was young, I had answers to everything. I could probably cure cancer when I was 20. But today, I'm always investigating. I love to live in the moment, and that's who I am. I'm looking for that next aha moment. Or who can I uplift? How can I make your life better? You know, I'm blessed to work in a job that I absolutely love. I am a facilitator for Goodwill. I train 16 to 24-year-olds how to keep a job, how to have a better attitude, how to resolve conflicts and everything. There's a different dynamic going on with our youth today, in a sense that I used to think of as, well, if you could take care of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, everything that you need, right? But these kids, these young adults, they don't know whether or not they're going to make it from my classroom back home safe, you know? And I don't know how to combat that, you know? So I'm always looking for a better way to do that.
What do you love?
I love myself. I love myself, and loving myself, I can share that with you all, share that with my wife, everyone.
How do you live knowing that you're going to die?
I looked at it twofold. I'm 65 years old. I may have 20 years left or whatever, but however I live it, I'm going to be happy doing it. I'm going to do the very most I can to inspire others and myself.
And what is your gift to the world?
My presence here. Anytime that I can give back for somebody who's taken so much, it's just an honor to be able to give back. That's what I'm about.
Thank you. Harry, same questions. Who are you?
Well, I don't know, and I say this in full candor because I was writing an essay. I don't know if it will be published because I was supposed to revise it, but I make the case that actors cannot know, that an actor is the sum total of the things that have been given for him or her to be or do. But our job really is to be tabula rasa, to really be, you know, a canvas. And I do not necessarily believe that actors are entitled to an ontology or a kind of or psychology or whatever. I mean, I have memories as a person that have created this cumulative me at the moment, but I have no idea that at some base level I could describe myself. It's just bits and pieces of the things that I either want to perform as a character or characters or that I've already done, or that people tell me that I am, or that functions and jobs that I've held and I'm that for that moment, but I'm never any one permanent thing. I have no idea. I would love to know.
What do you love?
I love music. I love laughter. I love meaning and depth of experience. This is the beautiful thing that you said, you know, that your life now, you know, has purpose as this is your giving back to that. That was beautiful. Your entire presentation was beautiful, by the way, very powerful.
Thank you.
But I love God. But God to me is a very basic thing, you know, that is the ability to create a creative force, the thing that moves forward and not stays the same. You know, I love the idea of exploring what the full experience of humanity is.
How do you live knowing that you're going to die?
I shall not die.
I love that. I'm going to use that. I shall not die.
And what is your gift to the world?
Well, I think it will be once it's created. The Lily and Marcy Center for the Performing Arts and the Museum for African American Performance that will program in it. That is the collective contribution of black people in the United States of America who have contributed the only indigenous cultural forms really here in the United States. Our dance, our song, our swag, our ability at hermeneutics and oratory and that. So that will be what I hope is my lasting legacy, or what you might call a gift to the world. But you know, let me expand on the shall not die thing, just a little bit. But you know, this is I go back to that, to John 3:16, I guess. If God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever should believe in him shall not die.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. We have some time to open the floor up to some questions. So if you have any questions for either of our two esteemed guests, yes, in the back there.
Thank you. First, a comment that's going to go into the play. Harry, somewhat like you, looking for my big break, I started out third grade lead actress in a Christmas play about a Yule log. So I'll leave that there.
It's awesome.
But as I listen to you, I think about reading Shakespeare in school, and all of the Shakespeare was in English classes. So as I'm sitting here and I'm listening to it a little differently, I'm thinking Shakespeare could be taught in so many different disciplines: history, music. So now what I'm going to do, I made the comment, and what I'm going to ask you both is to name one or two Shakespeare plays that you could see assigned to a discipline other than English. High school level or college level? I'll take it.
I'm thinking.
And certainly there have been very many musical, expressions of Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, and things by Tchaikovsky, and several suites, of course, by Duke Ellington. So certainly music, I think. Does that count? Can I?
Music counts. It's an easy one. Music
Yeah, you said that. That's very good, very good. Certainly psychology, the human, understanding the human psyche and the things that inform it. And I think Shakespeare, just that what deeper question has ever been asked than to be or not to be?
Yeah.
That is the question. So yeah, I would say psychology easy. Did you say two? Because you discounted my music.
Repeat, I missed the last part of your question.
Shakespeare, so many different plays. Many schools, when they teach it in English classes, especially at the high school level. What other subject could you see any Shakespeare play being taught in? Any of the Shakespeare plays? Think about Othello.
I think still music really stands. I know. I was thinking the same thing. Just because of the pentameter of it, just because of the beat. I'm also thinking about, because Shakespeare refers a lot to the metaphysical, in a sense, and so it's something spiritual, or let me just put science out there, science in a sense, because a lot of things, or if you really investigating Shakespeare, when they talk about the spleen and different parts of your body and how that is affected, because back then medicine was more of a myth or a witchcraft practice, as they try to figure out why people are sick and what promotes healing.
If I may, I would piggyback on that. Just thinking of the culinary arts, which is also somewhat of a science. Titus has several instances of baking, as well as if you explore the plays of just how to put them on, the ingredients to make fake blood. You can look at the chemical compounds that make up that, or if you want to look at it from like a wrestling standpoint, you can stage several fight choreographies based around Shakespeare's text and exploring it through those dimensions. You're welcome. The ma'am in the back, did you have a question as well? Yes.
Hi. I just want to preface this by saying I'm not an actor. I'm not a Shakespearean scholar by any stretch of the imagination. I'm a nurse practitioner. And Mr. Byron, your
Thank you.
And your genuineness when you were talking. I love the story of your forgiveness of yourself and the other people. And you had mentioned that when you were Othello, Desdemona brought up Carol.
Yes.
Have there been other roles that have brought up the other villains in your life, the other people who
It's
to you, like your mom, your dad, the teenager?
yeah. I did not talk much about I idolized my dad and my mom, and then so me as a grown up making grown up decisions, really investigating why the person that I have become, and learning through forgiving my parents, and made me investigate all the trauma and things that they suffered. They did the very best that they could for me. Othello was pivotal because number one, if I steal something, that can be replaced. But if you take a life, that can never be replaced. So it's like when somebody who has an addiction, once they reach rock bottom, it took that third time of being incarcerated for me to reach rock bottom, and then the significance of life being, of me taking a life, to realize that why am I here? What am I doing? Why does this keep happening? Because I always was a very caring, giving person, and so I thought, why did this happen? There's a reason why it happened. That's what needs to be. I'm the only one who can fix me. I'm the only one who can fix me. What I love so much about the process and what I learned through Shakespeare Behind Bars is that something that's unheard of is what Kurt Toffman does, is that he does not even assign, Harry and any of us up here, he wouldn't assign us a role. He allowed us to choose it. And so there's a conflict resolution that goes on. And so we get a chance to choose the role that we want to play. He gives us that choice. He just presents it to us. It's by having that choice.
Well, I say this in all sincerity. You're a good part.
Thank you.
Yes, Mark.
So awesome. Thank you both for all your time and your talent and energy today. But my thought is, for one, I'm a huge fan of using theater as the tool for social change. And while we're all in this room experiencing this together, that's great. But are there any action items or themes that you guys think that we should do, that we can do to continue this work after we leave this space? I hate the thought of leaving this space and just being like, okay, well, I experienced this, that's it. So I'm looking for things that I can do to amplify this work and amplify the stories of people like you, Mr. Byron, who have these stories. That we have such a base level understanding of. So, yeah, whatever you will with that.
May I? I have learned that everyone in this room has a story. That's imperative, that's important. We need to find an arena for you to tell your story, to get it out there, to share it with other people, because you're beautiful. We all are beautiful, creative people. It would be such a tragedy to have a story like Maya Angelou said, there's no tragedy like an untold story inside of you. I know that tragedy. I've lived that tragedy. And we have that in all of us, is to be able to share it with a brother, a sister, a friend, and stuff, and never stop sharing it. Because people are inspired by the beautiful people that we are and can be.
everyone is aware that the prison population, dyslexia is very much overrepresented in the prison population. Work on our schools. So thanks for bringing that up. My dyslexic problem. So early, but I also wanted to know both of your perspectives on Shakespeare, the work of Shakespeare. There's been a whole lot of plays, there's been a whole lot of books, there's just a whole lot of stuff out there. Is Shakespeare special? And if so, like personally and culturally, if so, why is Shakespeare special? What makes Shakespeare's work worth our attention?
I think this would be a good, if I could take this one, but also to fill in my answer, because I think it will come, but history, philosophy, political science, communications, and I think that's why Shakespeare is special. That is to say, that I think my definition of genius is someone who can define or describe at least the experience or the phenomena of life everywhere through the point of view of their discipline. That is to say, that Shakespeare could understand the entire phenomena of the world through language. The history of it, the philosophy, the anthropological, everything that Shakespeare, if you asked him to challenge him, that he could describe the entire universe from the point of view of language, and the English language in particular. And so I think that's what makes him special. The English people, I think, just named him the man of the millennium or something, the person of the millennium, and I don't think they were, just giving that award out lightly. But I believe that the things such as the structuralism idea of Foucault and these guys, in France, who talked about what language can do to create a reality around it, that through language, we can have entire political systems constructed, entire philosophies and all of these things, religions, all of this, that structuralism is Shakespeare's particular stock and trade, that he created, to some extent, the whole American experience. When people came over here, those who were not already here, but when the immigrants and the enslaved persons and other people came over here, most of them, if they had anything at all, was either a Bible or the plays of William Shakespeare. And I would say that more than the British people, that Shakespeare had a special meaning for Americans in a way that could not have been as important to people who had long lived with him, but people, sailors and pirates and stuff, would memorize long tracts of Shakespeare because he defined and described what they were experiencing in their hearts that they could not put into words. Just watching Sammy today doing, when he was saying the fifth act that we were talking about, where Othello kills Desdemona. Shakespeare gave that language. Do you mean the jealousies and all of the suspicion? If you want to describe or use or find a way to say something that you are at a loss to do, read Shakespeare, and you'll find it.
We have a rehearsal that we have to get to in a little bit, so we have time just for a couple more questions. Yes, right here.
Yes, earlier when you were asked about Shakespeare parts that you have played or would like to play, you focused on history and tragedy. I would love myself to see both of you, maybe in this space, perform any of the great comic parts. And I wonder if there are some you have performed and enjoyed or would love to perform. I could see you, Sammy, as a wonderful Falstaff.
Yeah.
And I could see you, Harry, as Petruchio, maybe.
That'd be a lot of fun. Yeah. That'd be a great deal of fun. I've really focused never on the comedies, but that is to say, something I would do. But it would be great to play Petruchio. Very, very cool.
We'll bear that in mind as we plan for our future.
There you go. Toby Belch. Toby Belch would be fun.
So Toby Belch.
Let's go you and then Lauren, and then we'll wrap it up. Yes.
Hi. First of all, I just wanted to thank anyone who had anything to do with this for creating this space. But Mr. Byron, those 4 questions that you brought up in your piece, and that you brought up, the who are you, what do you love, and what is your community, and all of that, I think boils down to finding purpose. And I think all of us are coming through this time where, whether you're a performer or just someone who has been a part of an industry that has kind of shut down for a time, it can feel a lot like you've been isolated from that sense of purpose of who you are. And I know that you're both, extremely successful in these jobs that you love so much, but I think it's a common theme through anyone's story who's done what they love to have that time where you feel like you are isolated from that, and you're not exactly sure how to reach out or how to move forward. And I'm just wondering what got you through that, and any advice you might have for anyone who might be going through a time such as this, because I know it's kind of a common theme right now.
I think to truly just try to attempt to be, it's all about the noble attempt. My training is that I don't worry about making a mistake, because we are our worst critics. We're always our harshest critics. But being able to let go and just allow people to be themselves. I think I told someone, I say it all the time, I have no fear of failure anymore. Failure is just an opportunity. I laugh at myself all the time. My beautiful wife lets me know I'm a failure at all times. I can never live up. It's an amazing thing. I was married to Barb before I committed this last crime, and I never wanted to imprison her with me. And I realized something in investigating myself was that I was just a person doing. I was a great provider. That was my foundation. But we didn't communicate. I didn't have the social skills needed. Now we talk about everything. We argue about everything and stuff. And it's a good thing, because I wasn't able to argue before because I was thinking about the violence and everything now. So I can accept taking what the young ones call a loss. And it's kind of like, her money is her money. My money is her money. We're in this together, but really just to be able to live in that moment and enjoy that. I am just drinking in all of this, and it won't even dawn on me till later that I was in the presence of not only you, but all you all are royalty. Y'all would take what you learned from this stage today and invest it in other people, and other people will hear about it, that begins that conversation. And that's what we were talking about in moving forward. That's how we move forward. And that's how you live forever, is it never dies. Shakespeare never dies.
And our final question.
Hi, my name is Lauren Wright. I actually did a show here some years ago where we did Much Ado, and I played Hero, Red Flag for a role. And I had an experience where several audience members kept coming up to me and saying, "Oh, well, I've never seen Hero performed like that before." And as a Black actor, I thought, well, you made my bad. So, because I had never seen any other performances of it, I looked it up, and apparently Hero does not cry. And I did not perform it that way. I performed it as something terrible has happened to her and someone's going to pay. I think my question is, what advice do you have for Black actors where there are certain racial tropes that tend to tie themselves to emotionality, and you have shows like for Shakespeare that are very tied to emotionality? How do you retain the authenticity of the act of the character without worrying that you're veering into that kind of like racial trope, where you're not the angry hero or the sad hero, but just hero with a different perspective?
Your last name, you're Lauren Bright?
Right.
B-R-A-Y, Bray.
I was going to make a very clever joke, which we shared the other day, which is, but I'm not going to do it on Bray. But there is a poem for physicists in the audience. There was a young woman named Bright who traveled far faster than light. She left one day in a relative way and returned on the previous night. So there you go. All right, so, but to your question, think about that for a little while there. But I don't think that any actor, young, old, black, white, gay, straight, anything ever should put themselves in a box.
Yes.
So you don't have to disprove anything, just play hero. And the fact that everybody before hero, people playing that role, did it in a certain way, if you have justification through the text, this is something that any good acting teacher, I'm sure, has already told you. If you can justify it in the tools that we have, which is the play text, and it makes sense, then just do that. Why are you can't undo the wrong thinking or the right thinking of the generations of the actors who played the part before you, but you don't have to. Whatever tropes people are going to take away will probably be taken away with or without your performance, and they're going to read into whatever it is that you're doing, what they're going to read into. I think it's Oscar Wilde who once said that when critics disagree, the artist is at harmony with himself.
I like that.
And I think that's true. You can see the same performance on this very same night and walk away with two people who walk away with completely different experiences. So don't worry about them. Do it for you. And you cannot decouple your psyche, just as you were talking about earlier, who am I? You cannot, however, if you have an opinion about who you are or may be, why decouple it from your ability? You're not being you, ever, in theory. Even when you're playing yourself. If you when Sammy's up here doing the tribunal of the Moors, is it called?
Yeah.
Of Othello's tribunal, that's a performance. That's mimesis. That is, he's not Sammy Boyd. Byron. He's not Sammy Byron. He's this character. He's a dramatist persona. And so he doesn't have to bring the entirety of experience. He's telling that which is so important in this way. So I would say, get yourself out of that prison.
Yes.
Like Sammy got himself out of it.
Yeah.
Through the power of his mind and imagination and invention. Don't put yourself in one. Why? That's what I would say.
I just want to add one thing. I said this before, we are our harshest critics. We judge ourselves way too harshly. And I've gotten to where I don't even worry about mistakes. Don't care. It's just a part, it happens, but you just cannot be so hard on yourself. Just think about just how beautiful you are. We're brilliant people. Enjoy that. Embrace that.
Kick that bottle over on purpose.
Oh, please.
Thank you. You did a great job on that. Great job.